Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Special Olympics Maryland 2019 Winter Games Snowshoe Pre-Competition webinar. Hosting this call tonight will be Ron Freeman, our Snowshoe Venue Director, and myself, Zach Cintron, one of the sports directors here. The agenda for the night, we hit our introductions there. We'll go through our competition team that you'll be seeing at Snowshoe, the schedule, the events that we're obviously offering, the course layout to expect, some warm-up and training information, information for your athletes getting the staging to awards and from both of those as well, some rules and reminder, what the weather outlook looks like, attire, family and spectator information, some miscellaneous info, and then we'll have our Q&A session at the end. The competition team for snowshoeing is led by Ron Freeman and Trish Miles. They are both the venue directors. Melissa Powers will be handling operations. Dave Gill will be our announcer, and he'll be working at the start line, and Ken McLaughlin will be working our finish line. If you take a look at the schedules, this is the overall schedule, not the specific snowshoe schedule. But you will see a lot of the important times that you'll need for this upcoming weekend. For Sunday, which is time trials, you have from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. to register your delegation. We also offer lunch at that point from 11 to 1:30. So when you get there after your delegation checks in, feel free to have lunch before time trials. We will be offering warm-ups for snowshoeing starting at 1:15, and then we will go right into our time trial starting at 2 o'clock. We will start off with the 400-meter plus time trials for the 400, 800, 1600 meter and the 4x4. I don't believe we have anybody entered in the 4x4. Next, we move to the 25-meter and the 50-meter time trials for the 25-meter and the 50-meter races. And then we'll move into the 100 and 200 time trials for the 100-meter, 200-meter, 4x1, and 4x2 events. Following that, there will be delegation housing check-in at the control center. Dinner will also be served at Whitetail on Sunday in the cafeteria area, the same place that lunch is served. And then right after that, delegations will head outside for opening ceremony. And following that, back at the Ramada Plaza will be the HOD meeting. Some notes for you on opening ceremonies: please stay on the patio area. We are working to keep everyone off the snow for opening ceremonies because we will have different things occurring on the snow. And we just want it to be as safe as possible, and everybody will be able to have a good view from the patio as well. Going into Monday, the afternoon session for us, since we have a venue change from time trials to our finals, in the morning, our competition team will be working to set up our finals event on the snow tubing area. So you will be first requested to go to lunch and then come over for snowshoeing competition starting at noon. Once the events start happening, we'll start awarding for the events as they finish and as divisions conclude. And then we technically have a snowshoeing coaches meeting set for 4:30. 4:30 is the time that we've posted, but if we end up finishing earlier that day, we will have the snowshoe coaches meeting 5 to 10 minutes after the conclusion of the last division. From there on Monday, we will head back to the Ramada Plaza for dinner. It'll be a buffet-style dinner, and we're asking that once you and your delegation sit down, please have dinner, but clean up and move on so other delegations can sit down and have dinner as well. Don't set up shop and sit there for the whole time. We want to get people in and out of dinner so then we can turn over and go right into the athlete social and dance at 7 o'clock. For families, there will not be meal tickets for them to join them at the Ramada Plaza. There are plenty other of places to eat around Ramada Plaza, and there's even another restaurant in the Ramada Plaza. But then during the dance, there's a family reception at the Homewood Suites, which is essentially right across the parking lot for families. Tuesday's schedule, it's an early morning start. 6 a.m. is breakfast at the hotels. Breakfast will also be offered at the hotels on Monday morning at the same time. Then again, 8 a.m. delegation registration and check-in at the control center. A note for delegation registration each day at the control center. That is just for HODs to check in. They will pick up packets for Alpine and Snowshoe, and then distribute them to the appropriate coaches from there. Alpine and Snowshoeing will start doing their course inspections around 9 o'clock, and then Snowshoeing competition kicks off right at 9:15, and we will go till 12:30 on the schedule. But similarly to the coaches meeting the day prior, if we finish early, we will get everybody out and along and on their way. And we ask of you that lunch is after Snowshoeing competition on Tuesday. So if all of your athletes have finished all their events and they've gotten all their awards, you are free to go have lunch and then head on your way. Here is the more detailed Snowshoeing schedule. You get an idea of what you're looking at. The biggest thing to note here is that we've moved the 4x200 meter relay from after the 400 meter race to before the 1600 meter race. The thought process behind that is that we have a lot more athletes that run the 400 meter race and the 4x2 than athletes that run the 4x2 and the 1600 meter race. So please have your athletes and unified partners prepared that Monday morning or Monday afternoon at 12:45. We're going right into the 4x200 relay. Following that event, we'll have our 1600 meter race, the 100 meter race, the 25 meter race, and the 400 meter race. And then after that, we've talked about doing a coaches race. We all enjoy the 180 games kind of style, and the athletes really enjoy that as well. So we want to provide that opportunity for coaches and athletes to kind of flip roles and have a little fun there. And again, like I said, as soon as we finish that portion, 5 to 10 minutes after, we will have that coaches meeting and we will move you on for that night. So the schedule for finals, the first day of finals on Monday, the second day of finals is for Tuesday, and we're going to have the 200 meter race, then the 50 meter race, the 800 meter race, and then we'll hit our 4x100 meter relays. Again, we have that tentative end time of 12:30, but if we make it through all of those relatively quickly, everybody gets awarded. We will move on through the day and we will cut everybody loose to have lunch and then head home when they're ready. This is a general overview of the resort. If you look to the right of the page, you'll see a road that heads off to the right. That's the direction you want to go for snowshoeing competition. You'll keep following that, and then you'll be able to turn down into a large parking lot. I also want to stress that for parking for snowshoeing, you must park in the large parking lot for the snow tubing area. You cannot park at the mountain operations building. In the past, we've allowed people to park at the mountain operations building for on-snow trainings, but there's a lot more people coming this weekend. And we also need to be respectful of Whitetail's operation folks so they can get in and get out and do what they need to do to keep the facility up and running and to the best of its ability. Something else to note is that if you look at the middle of the screen there, you have the family hospitality area, which will be on the second level of the lodge. There will be only one individual family hospitality area this year. It'll be at the main lodge. There will not be a separate one for snowshoeing. In that same area, you'll have the control center and delegation check-in for Sunday. And then if you note to the far left where it says Kids Mountain Camp, on Monday or Sunday evening, Monday and Tuesday, control center will be moved over there. So you'll be able to have access to that. And those are the most important points that you need. The dining area is off to the center right. And through that main building where the initial walkway up to the ticket window is, on the back side of that is a patio for opening ceremony. A quick overview of the snowshoeing venue. When you come in, so at the top, you'll see the time trials location for Sunday at the Mountain Operations Building where we've been doing it for a while. And if you went to On Snow, it's the same location. Again, please do not park up there. Please park down below in the snow tubing area. And for Monday and Tuesday as well, if you park in the parking lots closer to the main lodge, there will be a shuttle running from the main lodge to the snowshoeing venue. From there, you'll see off to the right, the snow tubing lodge and the actual hill itself. That's where we will be holding competition. You'll see it a little bit better in the next slide. But that top building right under Snow Tubing Lodge is where the awards will be held, and where you'll be able to take athletes after their events and pick them up after, and results will be posted there as well. That smaller building towards the bottom of the slope there is now a pavilion. It is not an enclosed pavilion. It's a very nice, with a fireplace kind of pavilion. But we will also have another 20 by 40 tent that is enclosed. In case of inclement weather, we will have the opportunity for delegations to get inside of there to take some shelter when they're not competing. Here's another look at the snowshoeing venue, a little bit further outlook. Again, you can see that time trials are up at the top there. And then the start finish will have the 200-meter oval down at the bottom of the snow tubing hill. Ron, is there anything you'd like to add on top of that to the venue maps?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there, Zach.
That's okay.
Really, I mean, just for folks who were there 2 years ago, and I think we'll emphasize this a little bit later in the slide deck, and also when we get out there, we are going to do our best to get that tubing area as flat as possible. We're sort of at the mercy of our whitetail partners out there and the equipment that they use, because they will be doing public snow tubing on Sunday and trying to turn that around for us on Monday morning. So our goal is to have as flat an area to run our courses in as possible.
Great point, Ron. And again, Whitetail does the best that they can do, and they know we try to get a flat surface, so they work really hard to make that happen for us, and we appreciate that. Some notes here for family and spectators. Spectator space is limited due to the narrowness of the course, especially for time trials. Interior space at the Mountain Ops building is limited, and we only want athletes and coaches and unified partners in there for time trials. There's very limited space, and Mountain Ops still has all of their vehicles and stuff in there, but they do offer up a few bays for us to set up shop so our athletes have somewhere to be. With that said, we will mark a spectator space in the snow. It'll be just directly left of the Mountain Ops building there. So you'll have a place to go if you have families or other athletes that aren't participating that want to watch. Spectators, you can bring your own folding chairs for comfort. There isn't a ton of room to set up easy ups and that kind of stuff. But if you have a spectator who can't stand for a long period of time, it may be wise to bring a folding chair for them. You do not need any sort of spectator walking pass for snowshoeing like alpine. And again, we also want to reiterate, one of the biggest things is please do not park at the Mountain Ops building. Park in the parking lots below. Just so everybody knows, for warm-ups and training, delegations are welcome to use the competition area if no one's competing on it. The practice for Monday and Tuesday. With that said, on Monday, we will be doing our best to set up the finals 200-meter loop as quickly as possible. So if snowshoeing personnel are working on the loop to get it all set up for a competition and they ask you to vacate the course, please have your athletes move off to the side so we can get that set up and ready to go. Again, be mindful of other snowshoeing participants that may be working in the general area and that may be trying to train for themselves as well. When it comes to staging and athlete pickup, time trials is located in the operations maintenance building, so it'll be a pretty easy in-out process. Finals is a little bit different because a lot of people will be set up and waiting for the races in that new shelter that I spoke about. But when they finish their races, they will be going from the 200-meter loop up to the tubing operations building, and then the inverse for coming back. So please have a coach that's prepared to potentially receive them at awards and bring them back. The goal is to have staging and heat sheet times distributed electronically on Sunday evening after we get all the division done after time trials. And the idea is to have the copies printed at the hotels on Monday. We will also, if you are not staying at the hotels, have your printed copy at the operations center for snowshoeing on Monday as well. Times are in real time. Competitors must be staged by the starting time. We provided that schedule earlier in the slideshow so you know what events should be coming when. Please plan to be there 15 minutes before so you're ready to go when that event takes off. There will also be an area of chairs prior to the starting line for athletes to sit and put on their snowshoes. We will allow coaches in that staging area to assist with equipment and preparing at that point. But if problems do arise in any capacity, we may ask coaches to leave. And then athlete pickup for the awards area will be following the presentation of awards inside the concessions operations building by the tubing park. Awards will be presented as usual as divisions finish. The lodge / operations / concessions building at the tubing park will be the main hub for that. Please do not bring your snowshoes into this area. It's not only a safety factor for your athletes, but we also do not want to damage or beat up the floors or the deck or anything of the operations building there. We really appreciate that Whitetail gives us that opportunity to use that building, and we want to take care of it as best we can. Another big note for awards is if you have an athlete attending an award ceremony, but they have another race coming up, go and race that next race, and we will make sure that that athlete gets awarded for not only the event that they're now going to race, but the race that they should have been awarded to prior with full honors. We'll make sure they definitely get taken care of. Some awards and results information. Delegations need to have someone dedicated again to the awards area to getting athletes after the presentations. We want to make sure they get back to the competition area and the heat staging area as quickly as possible so they don't miss any of their races. We will also post the results for snowshoeing right outside the building, not on the wall. We will actually have them on large chloroplast boards that we'll have out there, but the results for the events will be posted outside. Ron, do you want to take over here?
Sure. I'm sorry. Once again, I'm muting my phone. We're going to go over several of the rules that we have for the snowshoe event. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. There have been no rules changes in the last several years. So I'm very cognizant of everybody's time this evening. So we'll allow you to talk to us again on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, but most of you, if you're returning from snowshoe, have seen these things before. What I am going to ask about the shoes, we are going to ask if you have an issue and you're not sure about the shoe size for your athletes, especially your younger athletes, talk to us on Sunday morning or Sunday at time trial so we don't have an issue during the competition itself. And we will work with you, but these are the dimensions of the snowshoes. Okay, next slide, Zach.
Coming with the next slide.
Okay, our races, as you see, again, no new races this year, and because we had no entrants in the 4x4 unified or traditional relays, this is the sum total of all the races for 2019 Winter Games, and we've had some talk, and maybe we will enhance the coaches race to include management team personnel and perhaps even SOMD staff. I know Zach is looking forward to that. Next slide. Okay, rules are the same as the last several years. Athletes may compete in up to 3 individual events and up to 2 relays. A couple of exceptions, again, for the 25 meter for the race, we look at that as a fundamental ability level race, and so if your athletes are doing 25 meters race, they can only also enter the 50 meter race. If they're doing the 50, they also may enter the 100, in which case, if they are in the 100, they are eligible to be in the 4x1. Okay, next slide. So in line with that same line of thinking, the relays are only open to athletes and partners who are able to race at least 100 meters. We ask that you have, if your athletes are participating in a relay, that they have trained together. A race that we've added the last, I think 3 or 4 years ago, was the unified race, the 800 unified. Rules are the same. Athletes and partners must finish within 5 seconds of each other. Failure to do so will result in a DQ. And we are asking that neither the athlete nor the partner is pushing or pulling or tugging or anything that's unsafe for either. If that's deemed by the course marshals and race officials, that will result in a disqualification. Okay, next slide. For races greater than 100 meters, both the time trial, well, not necessarily a time trials because that's more or less an out and back, but for the games themselves, we'll use a waterfall start to equalize the distance for all of our racers, and we'll have cut-ins at the top of the corner so that we will only have lane lines on the one side of the track for the 50-100. So we'll do a waterfall start and have a cut-in lane at the far corner. For the race start, the athletes will hear 2 commands: racers ready, and then go. If we have hearing impaired athletes, we'll have a flag, and depending on the weather, we'll have a horn out there. If it's wet or really, really cold, our air horns may not work for visually impaired for the horn, but we will make accommodations for your athletes at the start of the race. Okay, next slide. We'll go over a few of the rules highlights. Again, no changes from previous years. 2 false starts equals a DQ. You can see there what a false start means, and we are certainly cognizant of bad weather conditions, if there's heavy winds or anything like that in terms of keeping the body parts still. But again, this is a pretty visible movement, a part of the athlete before the start of the race. Okay, next slide. Okay, we will again enforce only officials and athletes and partners on the course. Let's go over the 2-minute rule once again for those of you who may not remember. An athlete must progress at least 20 meters for every 2 minutes in a race, 100 meters or longer. If an athlete falls, has difficulty with equipment, or leaves the course, he or she has 2 minutes to correct, and that athlete or any athlete may not progress more than 3 meters without both shoes attached to their feet, not carrying them in their hands. Next slide. For time trials, for those of you who have been at Whitetail in the past, you'll remember the course up there at the operations building. The 50-meter race is straight the entire course, and it's virtually 100 meters flat. The 100-meter race is mostly flat. Towards the end, there may be a slight incline, but it will dogleg a little bit to the right because of that building that's there. But for the most part, it's a straight shot. We sort of do maybe a 10 or 15 degree turn or movement to the right, to keep the 100 meters going. For the 400-meter race, it's an out and back to the 200-meter mark. Be aware for your athletes that beyond maybe 90 meters or so, your athlete is going to be going uphill, off to the right again, and there's a significant incline, I believe. So make sure your athletes walk the course, see what what they will be encountering. To get the turnaround point, we will have plenty of course marshals. We will have cones. We will have markings on the course with food coloring so that we don't lose any athletes either to go beyond the 200-meter mark or off the course in any way. Okay, next slide. For the Winter Games themselves, as we mentioned before, this will be a 200-meter loop. We will have a 100-meter extension on the close side of the track for our close side of the course for our athletes doing 100 meters. So the loop will affect every race that is greater than 100 meters. And as we said earlier, we will try, in working with our partners at Whitetail, to get the course, the race course, as flat as possible. We are sort of limited by natural conditions, and also limited by fact that the tubing for the public is available both Sunday before we start and Tuesday when we finish. So our goal and our agreement with Whitetail is to do it as best as we possibly can. Next slide. For the finish, a couple of rules. The athlete has finished the race when his entire torso, or his or her torso, has crossed the vertical plane of the finish line, not the tips of their shoes, not the extension of their arms. So, be aware for that, for have your athletes run through the finish line, and they must be wearing both snowshoes when crossing the finish line. No carrying them across the finish line. That will result in a DQ. Next slide. Highlights for our rules for relays. Our exchange zones and the exchange rules themselves are virtually identical for what we have on the track for athletics. Exchange zone is 20 meters in length. The exchange begins when the receiving racer first touches the baton. That must be entirely within the exchange zone. If the baton drops, then the athlete who drops the baton must be the one to pick it up. It is a DQ if the incoming athlete drops the baton and the receiving athlete picks it up. It must be a handoff between the incoming and the receiving athlete. What we will do, what we tell all our athletes when they show up for the relays, we will show them the beginning and the end, excuse me, of the exchange zones. We will place them in the middle of the exchange zone. If for some reason, as coaches, you would like, and you have coached your athletes to be either at the front or the back of the exchange zone because of I'm sorry, my screen just blacked out. Hold on just a second. I'm sorry, Zach. If you placing your athletes either for your competitive advantage to have your athletes at either the beginning or the end of the exchange zone, so that you minimize or maximize the distance that each athlete is doing, that's up to you. We will certainly not prevent your athletes from doing that. Zach, can you take the next slide? Well, my screen blacked out, and I just need to
no problem, Ron. I'll pick up here. It's a little bit more relay stuff. Again, it's a reminder that relay teams consist of 4 competitors. Any teams that have fewer than 4 competitors will forfeit that heat. Each competitor must complete 1/4 of the distance, obviously, and you're not allowed to complete more than one leg of the relay. Unified sports relay shall be made up of 2 Special Olympics athletes and 2 unified sports partners. Pretty much the standard for any relay event. If you do track and field, you should be really used to that at this point. Run orders for the weekend. Preliminary run orders for all given races will be given to Ron by the conclusion of time trials. We are not going to make changes to the run order on Monday or Tuesday, and there are no changes after that except for medical scratches. If you have an alternate that you would like to activate for that race, they need to be activated before the conclusion of time trials or at the conclusion of time trials. So that night when we go in division and set things up for the next day, we can do that right away. Any other change requests will result in a team racing for participation ribbons only. Going into some DQs here. A few of the things here that you guys probably know at this point: improperly overtaking or impeding on another competitor, preventing another competitor from passing, leaving the designated course, 2 false starts like we talked about prior, making an improper exchange on the relay that Ron spoke about earlier as well, failing to adhere to the 2-minute limit, progressing more than 3 meters without both of your snowshoes on your feet, crossing the finish line without both snowshoes on your feet, or receiving physical or verbal assistance from any time after he or she crosses the start line, to begin the race, and before he or she crosses the finish line. And we'll go a little bit into the coaching aspect in a few slides here. So miscellaneous rules. Are you good, Ron? Are you back in?
Yeah, I'm back in.
Okay, do you want to take back over here?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry about that. If you don't touch your screen, it sort of blacks out. Then you have to log back in. Then you have to remember your password, apparently. Okay. Protests. Only the head coach for your team can file a protest. A little bit different than the track where an athlete can submit a protest. Again, the second bullet was mostly in there from time trials events, course layout. No race will finish on a curve. That will be true even on the our 200-meter course itself. We will paint either on the snow with food color or some indication of where the coaches' boxes will be, both for time trials and for the event itself. Okay, next slide. Coaching during competition. We talk about this for every sport, every season. We talk about this in alpine. We'll talk about it really briefly in snowshoe. There is no coaching of your athlete during the event itself. It provides an unfair advantage to athletes and partners who are competing in their events independently. So we ask not only coaches, but coaches, please tell family members, please tell friends of family who are there to watch the event. You can certainly cheer on your athlete. That is acceptable and encouraged, but coaching is prohibited at the start area, during the race of any kind. We ask you to be cognizant of that. And if we find that an athlete is being coached, that could result in a DQ. So you really want to be aware of that. And this is no different than what we say at every event, every season, at each of our athletic competitions. One of the things we often run into is, and we see this more at time trials than we see during the games themselves, is family members, coaches, assistant coaches, or someone running with their athlete up and down the course. That can't happen. We will stop you, and it could result in your athlete being disqualified for that event. So please talk to your folks about that. Okay, next slide. As I said, consequences of coaching for the first offense, that person will be asked required to leave the course for the duration of the event. And for the second event, that person would be ejected from the Winter Games. But more importantly than that, it jeopardizes your athlete's position from participating in that event. So you just really, really important. Next slide.
And just something to remind everyone of too, Ron, it's not just coaches and potentially volunteers and stuff. Also your families. We also want to make sure they're aware of the coaching rule, and also expressing the difference between coaching and cheering and rooting someone on. Yelling at an athlete to move to the inside of the track, or speed up or slow down or change their pace is coaching. But to cheer them on, say you're doing a great job, finish strong, that's cheering. So I just also wanted to make that distinguished difference there, to pass along to families as well.
Okay. Again, we have multiple slides because this becomes an issue all the time. So HRDs and coaches are strongly requested to ensure that their athletes are not DQ'd by anyone in either friendly to your delegation or in your delegation. Okay, next slide. Do you want to go back to you, Zach, or do you want me to fumble my way through the rest of these?
No, I'll pick up here for a little bit, Ron. So talking about weather and attire, we're always checking the weather. The weather changes all the time, especially up there on the mountain. Usually you can anticipate, especially if you're from the lower parts of Maryland or the mid part near Baltimore and stuff, it's going to be a little bit colder up there. So please be prepared for all sorts of weather conditions. It might be real cold. It might be a little bit warm for this time of year. It might be a little bit of rainy. It might be snowing. So we always recommend, as you'll see in the last bullet point there, to do layers. You can always, if you have layers with you, put more on, take them off, do what you need to do. Another really important point is to make sure all participants are staying hydrated. A lot of people have a perception that during the winter, it's not hot outside, so you're not sweating as much. But there are times, especially in the winter, if you're in all sorts of layers and you got a heavy jacket on and another smaller jacket underneath and a long sleeve shirt, you may be sweating just as much as, summertime on the track. So make sure everyone's staying hydrated and they have access to what they need. Again, we kind of talked family and spectators a little bit prior, but family hospitality and merchandise will be in the main Whitetail Lodge on the second floor there. We will not have one specifically for snowshoeing. Again, spectator space is somewhat limited. We will have that spot designated for time trials, and we have a little bit more of opening for finals competition on Monday and Tuesday. The interior space at the Mountain Ops building is only for athletes and coaches and unified partners. Parents and spectators should be in the outside space, which we will mark in the snow to the left of the Mountain Ops building again. And remember, you can bring a folding chair or something to sit in for your comfort. Some miscellaneous notes for you. Again, coaches have the opportunity to adjust competitive events following time trials, but right after time trials, your head coach, HOD, or area director needs to get them to Ron Freeman ASAP, because we will go right into divisioning for the next couple days. Again, results will be posted for finals outside of the awards building. We'll have them on the chloroplast boards there. For coaches, while your HODs will be checking in for your delegations as a whole each day at the main building, we still recommend that head coaches check in at the Snowshoeing Control Center each day to see if we have anything for them. We may have some little notes or tips here or there throughout the weekend. So it's always good to check in there as a coach. Again, we've hit this parking thing a million times as well. We do not want to see anybody parking up at the Mountain Ops building, because if there's an issue with that, there's a chance that you will have to be towed, and we do not want that, because that creates some long-term problems there for getting everyone home. Again, I want to remind you that if you park in the main lots outside of the main lodge, there will be an opportunity to catch a shuttle on Monday and Tuesday to the snow tubing area. Lunch will be served at the main lodge starting at 11:30 each day. I know we had 11 on some of the schedules. They usually are serving food almost 24/7 there, but they go into main lunch mode where you can use your specific lunch tickets that we will give you at 11:30. Again, please on Monday eat lunch prior to coming to the snowshoe venue, and then on Tuesday eat lunch after before you head home. A little note that we put in there is that if anybody is around, especially towards the end of the day on Tuesday, we may need some assistance pulling things together, just so we can get things in and out. I also want to remind everybody that we are extremely appreciative of Whitetail offering this venue and this opportunity to us. So please clean up your garbage and your delegation's garbage on your way out each day. We want to keep it as clean and beautiful as it is when we show up. A final little note here for this slide, the theme is Monster Mash. So I've already had that song stuck in my head for months now knowing that. So prepare yourself for the Monster Mash. We also want to make everyone aware that we have an evaluation survey like we always do for all of our events. We ask that you use this link. There will also be this link posted all over. It'll be in your delegation package. So you won't be able to get away from this link. But we ask you to complete this survey, because if you complete this survey, we can learn what we can do better to help you. And a lot of the times people tend to fill out these surveys only when they did not like something or something didn't necessarily go right. But if you had a good time, we ask that you fill it out as well, because we've also run into the past where if 15 people said that they didn't like the meal choice for lunch one of the days, and that's all we saw. We know 15 people didn't like it. We change it for the next year, and then 100 people come back and say, hey, we really liked the food last year. What'd you do? So if you're not telling us, hey, I really like that lunch option, I think the lunch setup is great, please don't change it, 50 of those will overrule 15 people potentially that say we didn't like it, or we'll find a better option for those 15 that potentially didn't like it, as long as we know that a good chunk did like it. Additionally, for coaches and families, you can also sit down with athletes and fill this out for them if they need assistance. It's not a survey where it's attached to a specific IP address where you can only do it once. You can actually do it multiple times. And then a following note at the bottom, again, for not only the whitetail staff, but a lot of you are volunteers, so you know that without volunteers, Special Olympics doesn't happen. So if you see a volunteer or you see whitetail staff, remember to thank them for their time and their effort on this weekend, because without them and without you guys, Special Olympics doesn't happen. And so we want to be appreciative to everyone that comes out to help us. If you are a snowshoeing athlete, coach, delegation in general, and you would like to go over and see Alpine, you do need to get a spectator walking pass to be out there on the mountain. If you would like one of those, you need to go upstairs to the second floor of the main lodge and go to family hospitality, and a waiver will be signed, and then you will be given a spectator walking pass. Only people who sign the waiver can get a ticket, and you do not need one of these for snowshoeing, but you do if you are interested in going up and seeing Alpine. Just some information for overnight emergencies. The medical will be on site at the hotel for overnight. We do not have the specific information coming out to you in this PowerPoint, but you will be getting it in your delegation packets, and your HODs will have access to them as well. But if you do have an emergency, of course, step one is called 911. But from there, the ideal step is to call either Mike Sarnowski or Steve Bennett, who will both be in the Ramada Plaza where all the delegations will be housed, to alert them of the situation so they can assist you, and just be knowledgeable of what's happening. Again, we put the little note at the bottom. We know you won't, I don't want to say abuse these, but these are for emergencies. And if you need to contact Mike or Steve in case of emergency, you can use these numbers. Again, just reminding of the check-in process. Delegations must check in at the control center each day. That is the HOD, not the full delegation. HODs will disperse the specific sports packets and information to the coaches from there. Any unused lunch tickets, they must be returned to the control center by 1 p.m. each day. Whatever tickets that get turned back in, we will return back to Whitetail unused, so we don't need them. Bibs will be distributed on Sunday for coaches, athletes, and partners. Delegations are responsible for those bibs throughout the weekend. We will give you one on Sunday, and that will be your bib for the weekend. So please have a game plan to stash them somewhere where they won't disappear or get ripped or have an issue, because you will need them for Monday and Tuesday as well. Again, reiterating parking, please park in the public parking areas, and make sure you're parking in a public-friendly parking place so you don't have any issues. Food services. Our delegation dinner will be hosted by the Ramada Plaza on Monday. Like I said, it's buffet style, and then we'll have the social and dance right after. Please eat and clean up to make table room for others to sit down and eat. The game plan is to turn over as quickly as possible to the athlete dance and social. Dinner on Sunday will be at Whitetail in the general cafeteria area, and then right after that, we will move on to opening ceremonies. The dance, again, is at the Ramada Plaza, same location as dinner. Again, be courteous when your table's done, vacate, and so we can turn it over as quick as possible. Again, families will not have the option to purchase a dinner ticket to eat with the delegations at the Ramada. Only officials registered to the delegations will have tickets for the dinner. I believe the idea for the dinner will actually be come with your credential. We will confirm that going into Sunday when delegations arrive, and your HOD will get the final call on Monday dinner, whether it'll be an individual ticket or if you will show up with your credential. Like I mentioned earlier, if families are looking for a place to eat, there is a restaurant in the Ramada Plaza, and within a mile, there are a bunch of other options as well. Breakfast will always be available at the hotels for the delegations starting at 6 o'clock. And Ron, do you want to take over at the next slide here while I try to get my screen back up?
Okay.
I just had the same issue.
All right. We're going to move to the next screen.
Did it move to the next slide?
I'm showing, I looked away for a second. I'm showing the food services. I think this is what you just talked about in terms of the dinner at Winter Games at the Ramada Plaza on Monday, buffet style, dance, same location as the dinner. So just need to be able to turn that facility around. Probably exactly with you having logged off, you can't move the screens forward. So we'll just wing it here for a second. We are, and I'm not sure if we talked about it a couple of slides ago at the beginning, in terms of weather forecast. We are looking at that. We are aware of everything that's going on. We pay for a weather service that we can look in pretty close detail to geographical areas, as we can hone in on the Mercersburg and the Whitetail area. So we do monitor that multiple times during the day. So there's no reason, to need to ask, are Winter Games on? Winter Games are on. We do not anticipate any change to that, but in the very unlikely circumstances that something changes, you will be notified. For those of you who are out at the Athletes on Snow a couple of weeks ago, we have a pretty big base of snow. This is a lot different than last year, where we had a long period of time where there was warm weather and wet weather, and Whitetail was not able to store any snow for us. That is not the case this year. For a period of 2 or 3 weeks when it was bitterly cold up in the Mercersburg area, they've been storing away snow for us for the snowshoe venue, for both down on the tubing area and for the operations. So we don't anticipate any issues this year, but you will be notified if there's any change to that.
Okay, Ron. That was actually that was our last slide that we had to hit anyway. The only thing left was, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Ron. My email is zcintron, CINTRON @SOMD.org, and Ron's is rfreeman @SOMD.org. If there's any questions, let me double check on questions here. It doesn't look like we have any questions, so we will close this up. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Ron. We both greatly appreciate you being on this webinar tonight, and we look forward to having you out at Whitetail this weekend. Again, we appreciate all you've done throughout this whole season, all the hard work you've put in, and we're looking to have a great final Winter Games. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.